The king has returned. Simba has come back to reclaim the Pride Lands. The UFC is nearly starless at the moment, but the biggest star, the one true diamond in this business, steal a line from Triple H, is Alex Pereira, and if he'd lost again last night, that could have truly been the end of Chama. But no, not only did this guy at 38 years old reclaim the light heavyweight title from Magomed Ankalaev, it was arguably his most impressive and easiest victory in the UFC against arguably his toughest opponent. There was a pretty solid chance last night's fight looked identical or even worse for Pereira than the first one, and instead he just goes out there and dominates so thoroughly that it doesn't feel like he's closing out his career. He feels hotter than ever with massive fights on the horizon. But first, we gotta talk about just how insanely impressive that victory was from the standpoint of how he approached it, because he was in full-on finishing mode from second one when he rushed Ankh. Was it because he was healthy this time compared to the first fight like he said afterwards? Possibly. Could have been a factor, although apparently his toes are just permanently moments away from dislocating for some reason. The way he casually just moved them around after the fight with his hand, Jon Jones could never. Was it that the game plan changed from what felt like hesitance in their first encounter to ruthless aggression John Cena style? I certainly think that didn't hurt. I mean, what are you supposed to do against that? Magomed looked entirely overwhelmed in the moments before he got hit with a shot that essentially ended the fight, and that was seconds into the bout. An aggressive Poatan is a dangerous Poatan, and I think he knew dragging this one out to 25 minutes again would not have worked. An absolutely brilliant performance and genius game plan. It is exceptionally difficult and rare to win your title back immediately after losing it. With such an impressive and dominant performance, Alex's next fight is sure to be a huge one. Now, he told Dana White this week that he wanted to move to heavyweight, but White seems to want to keep him at 205 for now, and I don't blame the dude because there are definitely fights there. Now, I know that Yuri just Yuri'd his way through Khalil Roundtree last night in Yuri-tacular fashion, and it was awesome, and I do think the UFC is fairly hot on the idea of a trilogy bout, but Carlos Ulberg's KO of Dominic Reyes and his up-and-coming status, that feels like a fight that could be potentially meaningful. The next generation against the current one. Either way, though, the UFC is sitting pretty right now because both of those guys are gonna stand there and bang with Poatan. No grappling, no holding him against the fence. Either way, fans are gonna lose their shit. And then if Alex is still champion after whichever matchup the UFC makes, that is the time to move to heavyweight. I mean, Poatan going for a third title in a third division, even if it's not against Tom Aspinall, which would obviously add a ton to this super fight and would be the ideal situation. But even if it's gone, the UFC's biggest star going for a third division's championship would be the kind of fight that headlines cards on the White House lawn, regardless of the opponent. Not to mention, Gon would strike with Poatan, which is what everybody wants anyway. Now, somebody from the media on hand asked about Jon Jones versus Pereira. I just don't see Jon fighting ever again, and I don't think the UFC has that on their radar at all. I don't think that's something we could factor in right now. I just don't think that's a realistic possibility. And truly, Pereira going for a third title would be massive on its own. It doesn't need a Jon Jones fight. The UFC has a huge show coming up to start the year and their partnership with CBS. If you make that Alex's final defense at 205 before setting him up for June and one of the biggest fights in UFC history, I mean, 2026 could be Poatan's year, which is an insane thing to say because the guy has already had plenty of years. He is rapidly becoming one of the most prominent fighters ever, and it's exciting as hell to watch. I thought Chama was done. I'll be honest, I didn't think he was gonna win last night, but beating Ankh like that, man, I am psyched. I want more. Let's ride this thing out as long as we can. There really aren't that many stars, and when this one is done, we're gonna miss him. So let's go big as hell the rest of the way here. I am fully on board. Now, of course, we've also got to give Merab the Machine his flowers tonight as well. I honestly have no idea who is going to beat that guy. I know he made a point after the fight to say that anybody could be beat, but that's probably not going to be happening anytime soon, would be my guess. I mean, when you look at the top four, he's already beaten all of them. He beat O'Malley twice. That fight's never happening again. If Umar beats Bautista, that's probably who they'll go with again, but you know what? Maybe not, because he just beat that dude this year. At least Petr Yan he beat in 2023, and there's other guys. Yadong's fifth, Zahabi's creeping up, but I'll be honest, I just don't see any of these people beating this guy. The Machine is truly the most perfect nickname any fighter has ever been given. He's just non-stop. It's really incredible. I genuinely hope that he's one of these champions that sticks sticks around and just racks up stupid amounts of defenses. I miss champions that just hold on to gold for a decade. There is so much turnover these days at the top. I'd love to see Merab hold that position and make his argument for the greatest bantamweight ever, because he's already in that conversation. But if he just rattles off like 5 more defenses, it's not even going to be a question. And his fights are fun. DC is right. He has a style that, even though it's grappling heavy, it's enjoyable to watch. He's in a perfect position to co-main a bunch of big cards and get extra pay, however that works in the PLE era, I don't know. But yeah, more Merab, please. All right, let's break down 320's main card by the numbers, pass out some awards, and send you kids home happy, huh? The UFC's 33rd show at T-Mobile Arena in Sin City saw 14 fights with 5 KO TKOs, 3 subs, 6 decisions, for a total cage time of 2 hours, 22 minutes, 12 seconds. At the books, 10 favorites came up victorious as expected, with 4 underdogs busting the odds to score a win. If you thought Joe Pyfer would get a second round sub on Abus Magomedov, you were sitting on a plus 2,000 outcome. Probably should have put some cash on that. Speaking of, that was the second submission victory in the UFC for Joseph Bodybags, Magomedov's first submission loss since 2013. That's 12 years, kids. That was also the 3rd straight fight scoring an official knockdown for Pyfer. We should probably all be more like him. Holy heck, Yusuf Zalal made it look easy against Josh Emmett. Only needed a $138 to get the job done. That's his 4th sub in 5 straight wins. Emmett's now lost 4 of his last 5 rough times at the top of the division. Officially a single strike thrown in that whole fight, with none landed on either side, earning Zalal our Gentle Artist Award. What an insane victory for Yuri Prohaska over Khalil Roundtree. Got absolutely worked in the first 2 rounds, came back out for the 3rd and started throwing like a drunken Dovahkiin. Lands twice as many strikes in the 3rd as he did in the 1st and 2nd combined, and puts Roundtree out for the 2nd time in 3 fights. Give that man our Chaotic Good Award. Merab's stats are staggering. He's on a 14-fight win streak in the UFC. That's 2 away from Anderson Silva's all-time record. He's got 3 bantamweight defenses now. That ties him with Aljo and Cruz for the most in a single title reign. He already had the most career takedowns in UFC history. He bumped that number up to 117. Nobody is ever beating that record. 20 takedowns on Sandhagen. That's the most in a title fight. Shockingly, the 2nd most ever behind Khabib, who did 21 in a 3-rounder. Potan's 12th UFC bout was also his fastest at just 1:20. He's now 6 of 8 in UFC title fights. That was Ank's first loss since his UFC debut back in 2018. Only his 2nd ever loss, period. It was the first time he's ever been stopped via TKO. It was also his least offensive output ever, with just 4 significant strikes landed. Not that he got much of a chance. Total chomination. I'm sorry for that one. And that is a wrap for all things 320. Take a bow, Max Randall. The man always does such an incredible and speedy job on the edits for these autopsies. Please show him some love on his socials and go check out his kick-ass YouTube channel. Big ups to our channel members. Your support is why we get these types of videos done so dang quick. Hit the join button to become a member and get cool content. Like and subscribe, because we do these after every numbered event. Leave a comment with all your thoughts on the show. I love reading them, and have a fantastic Sunday. Maybe go on a walk or something. Later.